My name is Chris White. I'm Senior Partner at the CWM Partnership Accountants in South London. And I have been sending out update emails to our clients over the last few days as all of the serious concern about the coronavirus period and how it's affecting our businesses continues to escalate. There have been announcements by the government, which at this stage are really just headlines with not much practical detail and not much physical help in terms of getting money to people. But what I want to do today is to run through the email which I have sent to everybody and to just go through all the points, because sometimes seeing somebody saying it is just a bit more reassuring or perhaps even informative than just reading words on a page. So I'm going to go through all of the key points. Remember, we only know what we know. I'm having to make some assumptions, but at this stage, here we are. So first of all, I'm thinking for every business and every individual, you have to begin by thinking about your highest expenses and what you can do to preserve cash, because through this period, that is going to be key. Preserving the cash that you've got, trying to find ways of getting the cash in from either a benefit support system from the government or perhaps even from some form of work, and then limiting the cash which is going out and identifying the things which are most important and then working your way down that list, because so many things can be put on hold at the moment. They're doing it to everybody and you shouldn't feel in any way ashamed for asking for help. So to begin with, HMRC. HMRC are being told to be very flexible with time to pay arrangements, with indications suggesting that during the coronavirus period there will be no interest charged. However, other comments have indicated that the priority will be to ensure that submissions are made on time so that HMRC can see the level of any debts, because if accounts are not submitted on time, then they don't know what you owe and therefore cannot set up the agreement. This has always been the case with such arrangements and means that it is important that you do please continue to instruct us early on to give us the maximum lead time before deadlines. My approach for those of you where this may be required would be to assess deadlines and get on the front foot to take control of the situations. If we can get HMRC to withhold requesting payments for now, that can only help you and effectively is as good as an interest-free short-term loan. Then moving on to business rates for those of you with physical business premises where you're paying rent. Business rates are to be suspended for the full 2020-21 year for any businesses in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors where the rateable value of the premises is below £51,000. This includes hotels, restaurants and coffee shops. Pubs will be given a £5,000 discount if their rateable value is below £100,000. If this applies to you, you should contact your local authority because there is likely to be a delay getting things in place. And then after speaking to them and agreeing nothing is due, also tell them you'll cancel your direct debit for peace of mind. Update to this since I sent out the original email is that those businesses now may qualify for a grant of up to £25,000. Now, the important thing to note is that this doesn't mean that if you've got a rateable value of, say, £30,000, that you will get £25,000 grant, because I don't think you will. I think there'll be a sliding scale between a rateable value of £15,000, which for those premises, there's a grant of £10,000, riding up to the £51,000 threshold. And I believe that between those points, we'll decide whether your grant is going to be £10,000 or £25,000. Beyond that, I don't know, but based on what I've read, that's what I would guess for the time being. Moving on, banks are being told to be more flexible in lending to affected businesses with a coronavirus business interruption scheme, which has now been set up where the government offers to underwrite 80% of the loan to give banks the confidence to lend where they might have otherwise said no. Once again, at this point, there is little guidance, but the message is clear to the banks: help and support small business. My comments on this would be that the business interruption loan scheme is designed for business support. It's not designed to help you put food on the table. And this is an issue I've been raising with my local MP, whom I've been having quite detailed email correspondence with. In regard to the loans as well, I've been reading that if the bank would have given you a loan anyway, then you cannot apply necessarily for finance through the coronavirus scheme. They would just lend you the money. In practice, how are they going to decide between the two? My gut feeling is the banks would probably rather lend where the government are going to guarantee 80%. But the main issue is that the banks have been told to help. You would then have to decide whether you think it's sensible to borrow for your business. Then statutory sick pay, which is now recoverable for companies and self-employed employers. Whereas before, if a staff member was off sick, you didn't get that sick pay paid back to you. Now you will for, I understand at the moment, 2 weeks worth of sick pay per individual. This is not a big financial help, but at least it means if somebody is off sick, and if your business was operating at the time that they were employed by you, that it's something coming back into your business. It's better than nothing. Then moving on to my update, which I sent out on Monday 23rd of March. So I'm going to go through this pretty much as it was written in the email. As I said earlier, at this point the government have announced headlines but very little in the way of detail, which is why I'm not rushing to give you numerous updates as we go along, because what it would not be good to do would be to send you things giving false hope. I think there will be a solution to all this, the best that the government can do, but I don't think it's good to get too drawn into rumours that you may then start to assume are going to happen, and you might make decisions based upon them. So I'd rather be honest than not. Employers, there is a new scheme, of course, that's been announced, which will help employers to cover up to 80% of the wages which would be paid by the employer if that employee remains actively employed by you. Now, to do this and to get access to this, you have to do what is called furlough your employee. And this is to basically say that the business for now, its activity is suspended due to unexpected circumstances. And therefore the employee remains an employee, but you are not necessarily physically going to pay them. You're just parking their employed position for the time being. The government is suggesting that they will then pay 80% of the wage. And it also seems that it is your choice whether you choose to increase the amount at which you pay that employee. How it's going to work in practice right now, again, I don't know, but there will be announcements. Will you have to pay employers' national insurance if you choose to furlough somebody? Again, I don't know. Will they have to have pension contributions paid? I don't know. Just to add in an edit at this stage, it is important to also remember that under the job retention scheme, that 80% is noted as covering all costs up to a cap of £2,500 per month. So if your employee's wage, or 80% of it, would actually be more than £2,500, then it will be reduced back down to the £2,500 per month amount. What is interesting is that it is saying all costs. So is that £2,500 per month including employers' national insurance and pension? This is one of the questions we will need to look into, and that is one of the reasons why right now it's hard to know what to put through payroll. But at the very least, it would seem that if you have a business which is not functioning to either full capacity or not able to function at all right now, that you can furlough the employees for at this stage up to 3 months, and that will undoubtedly continue if the situation continues. And they will then get paid. The issue is that you have to fund the wages in the meantime, because to access the money, the government are talking about setting up a scheme of HMRC, which may be ready by the end of April, where you will then have to provide them with details of the employees whom you have furloughed. And once they have that information and process it, they will then issue a grant to the business to cover those costs which you incurred. So again, it's a grey area. and we just have to watch this space. But the help is going to be there. The issue about how you furlough an employee, that moves across to a more legal standpoint, and I'm going to try and find out some more information about that. I'm assuming that it's going to be by way of letter, but it'll be a process that will still need to be followed in some way to document that you have furloughed the employee, you're not letting them go, that therefore their job is available at the end of the period, and that they also understand and they would accept the furlough. What if they say no? Well, then the issue for you as a business would be to think, can I afford to pay them? And the answer right now is possibly going to be no. And you would then probably choose to make them redundant. So I don't think there'd be a great deal of resistance from employees if they're given that choice. Next, on to some further help with taxes. And bearing in mind what I said earlier about delaying payments to HMRC with time to pay arrangements anyway, then these announcements are pretty much just carrying on with what we already knew, but there's some more formality to it now. So for VAT registered businesses, no VAT payment is going to be due for the current VAT periods, which end for the period up to 29th of February, 31st of March, or 30th of April. Those would have had normal payment dates of the 10th of April, 10th of May, and 10th of June. Instead, those returns will have to be prepared and submitted as normal. I've read guidance which suggests that HMRC would class such a return as being late if the physical submission was not made on time. However, it will not be classed as being late if the payment is not made on time. It's a small point, but it's an important point, because for businesses that we may all be struggling for some time to come, and there are surcharges and penalties for late VAT submissions, and therefore we don't want to clock them up unnecessarily. So it kind of has to be, it feels so strange to say, but business as usual in regards to making submissions to HMRC. In regard to the payment that's going to be pushed back, it's not going to be cancelled, and they advise that the payment for that period will instead have to be paid by the end of the 2020-2021 tax year, which will either be the 31st of March or the 5th of April. Again, no clarity, but it'll be one of those two dates. My advice in the meantime would be that, assuming things start to return to some level of control and a new normal when we get over the next month or so, that if you have got those funds already to put to one side for the VAT liability, that you move them into a deposit account or something similar. Keep that ring-fenced, because the last thing you want to do is to have to use the taxman's money to fund your business and your living expenses. But we could be in a situation where that is almost unavoidable. But for now, if you can park that money to one side, then you would then obviously be very much aware if you find yourself having to dip into it. And that could be a warning sign and a need for further discussions and consideration. Then self-assessments. Payments on accounts which would have been due on the 31st of July will now be pushed back to the 31st of January next year. This means that the 31st of January payment next year would be higher than it otherwise would have been. Not ideal, but to protect your cash flow for now, better than nothing. It also would mean there will be no interest accruing, I assume, on that delayed payment on account. Corporation tax and PAYE. No direct announcements in that regard, but referring back to what I said at the top of this video, then time to pay arrangements can be reached with HMRC, and right now, in terms of survival, HMRC are going to have to park these liabilities, because it's in everybody's interest that we all get through this together. Now moving on to other financial support. So employees, if they're put to one side, yes, the government will cover 80% of the wages. But what about everybody else? What about those of us who operate through companies? And we are the director and then shareholder as well, possibly with our spouses, taking, as millions of businesses do, our income from salary and dividends. What's going to happen to us? Right now, I don't know. But something will be done. That much I can assure you. From the end of last week or Thursday evening I was in active email correspondence with my local MP, who is a household name. And much to my surprise, he was actually engaging with me in a proper discussion, bringing up points as to why it's very difficult for the government to know what to do with businesses such as ours. The main issue is that how can they know whether we are still operating? Now, for some of you, you'll hear that and think, well, that's obvious. I operate a shoe repair business and I've been told to shut, so of course I'm not operating. But there are other businesses which could actually be doing quite well. So food delivery businesses, or care in the community businesses, or even freelance carers. So I see the government's point, but that doesn't change anything. People right now need help. So what's going to happen? Well, at this stage, all that's being proposed is there'll be a small amount of universal credits that you might be eligible for. But that's not a solution. There's more to come on this. So my discussion with the MP was going round and round, and he assured me that the government are going to do something. And then on Saturday, I actually put my mind to it, looking at all the points he had made. And in an effort to do something positive, I put together an idea myself, a plan as to how perhaps the government could work around things. I'm not going to go into the detail of it now, but I sent it to him Saturday and then had an email back on Sunday. And instead of, as the other replies had been, saying, oh no, that cannot work because of ABC, the response actually came back saying, I think that's a very interesting idea, and I have WhatsApped it to Treasury ministers. So that's good. It really does prove that things are being considered. And at the time of watching this, if you're still concerned, and you would be, then things are going to happen. There will be a package. Is it going to be ideal? Probably not. Is it going to be fair compared to the employee scheme? Possibly not. But it's going to be better than what we're looking at today, which is nothing. So next, I've got some general advice. This would apply to begin with for our personal finances. And I'm not a financial advisor, but I can tell you what I've been doing and what I've been telling my friends they should be doing. And it's common sense stuff, and you would have probably thought of this already, but when you're worried, sometimes you just need to see and hear the advice to allow you to sit down and go through things step by step. So looking at personal finances, you've got to begin with your biggest outlay, which for most of us will obviously be our mortgage or rent. The government has already said that mortgage holidays should be seen as freely available. And to take the heat off, you can have a 3-month mortgage holiday, and unless you definitely don't need it and you're confident that you don't need it, then it's got to be worth speaking to the bank to get that in place. For the next 3 months, that takes the heat off. If this were, God forbid, to go on beyond that, then I think that the extension of the mortgage holidays would also move with it. They would have no choice. But for now, if you can negotiate a mortgage holiday, do so. Loans and credit cards, I've heard mixed reports about this, some being quite accommodating and some not. But I think as this is going on, they're all going to be taking the same approach as the banks with mortgages. So, well worth speaking to them. Is it going to appear on your credit rating? I would assume not. But if you are speaking to them, get them to actually confirm that during the call. Because as we all know, when you phone up, they will always say this call may be recorded for quality and training purposes. And I've had instances in the past where organisations have said to me, oh, we're going to go back and check the recording of the call. So when you speak to them, confirm it's not going to affect your credit rating. And when they say, you know, the affirmative that you'll be okay, then we effectively banked that as a bit of a guarantee. Next step, as I said, for businesses, the same as for personal, don't worry about taxes right now. If you've got a business which is ongoing and you can afford to pay the taxes, then, to be honest, then fine. But if you've got any doubts and concerns, then be cautious, because once you've paid that money out, you're not going to get it back. So think about it carefully. Then an obvious one: don't buy anything non-essential right now that you might regret later. Things might be okay today, might be okay next month, but none of us know what's coming up. So if you're getting tempted to buy something for home and to treat yourself to make yourself feel better, just have in the back of your mind that, God forbid something goes wrong, am I going to then think, oh, I wish I hadn't bought that? Better right now to tighten the belt if you feel that you should do. Then small one, gas and electric. Are you on the cheapest tariff? It would be worth going onto a website just to check what the tariff you're on, maybe switch it over. You might save yourself £20–30 a month, but everything makes a difference right now, so look into it. Also, it's been a mild winter, so if you're on a standard payments, where you don't get a statement from the utility company more than every 6 months or so, check, you might be in credit. If there's a credit balance, get it back. All these things you've got to think through carefully. There will be other things to consider as well with the personal finances, but it's just a matter of going through line by line. At the end of the day, we've got our essential bills we have to pay, main one being food, but examine it on a case-to-case basis. If you've got a membership for the gym or membership for swimming lessons for the kids, that's not happening right now, so make sure these things are cancelled. And the other thing, unless it's really bad, life insurance is, to be honest, I wouldn't be tempted to even think about cancelling that right now. You've got to be sensible, play things safe. Then our plan is practice. So the CWM partnership, we moved everything up to the cloud last year. So we are all in a situation where we can operate and work from home as I am. We're still open. I've never been busier in my entire 30-year career. And we're working with you. We've always been a team with our clients, and we have to practice what we preach. There are going to be tough times ahead, but you need to know we're on your side. We want to help. Our next step is to be thinking, we're coming up to the tax year end now. 5th of April is nearly upon us, which will mean that 2020 tax returns can start to be done. There'll be two schools of thought. Right now we could think, well, that's not important. You can park that. But it will be important for quite a large number of you. Number one, if you're a business that has tax deductions made against it, you might be due a refund. The sooner we can get your information, the sooner we can get the accounts and tax return done, and the sooner you would get that refund. It's all about cash coming in right now. The next point, if you're a business that may want to apply for a loan, I was looking at some of the business interruption schemes earlier on, and the point that is made on every single one I looked at is they want to see the last 3 years' accounts. So again, from our point of view, I'm in a strange situation where, despite what's going on out there, we need to get things continuing as normal. We need to be able to have access to your information to be able to prepare those accounts that you might need. You might be only going to a bank as a last resort. The last thing we need is long delays right now. So if we ask you for information, please get it to us. In terms of our fees, yes, like you, we've got expenses, we've got a business to run. But I'm hoping that we can find some kind of workable solution so that we can all work together. And if we're all cutting the big stuff, getting our budgets down to essentials, then one of my essentials is to make sure that when I'm using other small businesses, I want to know I can pay them, because that keeps us all going together. But keep the lines of communication with us. We're going to keep the lines of communication with you. As I've got further updates, I'll be sending them out. If you are seeing this video and are interested in being included in any further updates that I'll be sending out, then please feel free to email me directly, and I'll give you my personal email address, which is chris@cwmpartnership.co.uk. That's chris@cwmpartnership.co.uk. Website address is thecwmpartnership.co.uk, and you'll also find us on Twitter @CWM Partnership. We are a QuickBooks Elite Pro Advisor practice. Digital software right now, cloud accounting is a great thing, particularly at these times. And the connectivity that we have in this digital age is going to be, I think, quite a saving grace for many of us to be connecting in this way. But stay in touch. We're going to stay in touch with you. Remember that all of the advice I've given in this video is only information I know to the best of my knowledge at this point. You can't rely on me in case anything turns out to be wrong, and any reliance you do place on it is at your own risk. If you need specific advice, you would need to specifically contact us. But for now, stay safe, and I will be in touch with further updates as and when I know.